All right, welcome back to the pod. This is episode 6 of the Adjacent podcast, discussing all things crypto, next to crypto, adjacent to crypto. And sorry about taking the week off. I had to spend some time up at my alma mater of Cornell in Ithaca, New York, doing some guest lecturing in the technology and entrepreneurship space. Had a great time, drank some wine. Happy to be back in our studio in Boulder. So for this episode is kind of exciting. It's kind of exciting for a bunch of reasons. One, we have talked a lot about the world of crypto. We've talked about tokens. We've talked about Bitcoin. We've talked about regulations and ATMs and just a variety of different things in the space. And we've probably even mentioned the term NFT at some point, but we've never really gotten into a discussion of what it is, its history, where it is now, and where it's going. And for that, this is the perfect subject for my next guest, who is Dan Carr, CEO at NiftyKit, an NFT platform. But before I jump in, as I always do, I want to give a little a little talk, because how I met Dan and how I ended up representing NiftyKit is an amazing story. Me and my guy, Dane Flanagan, were out in LA on a Saturday and in the fall, and we were thinking, God, we need to find a bar to watch some college football. So we were close to Marina del Rey. We pulled up into a really bougie bar, sat down, had a couple drinks, and started watching some games. And in that conversation, Dane, who is a wealth manager, probably one of the most social guys you've ever met, starts chatting up the guy next to us, and we're just having a nice conversation. That guy's name was Lofton Taylor, and he coincidentally had just left his job and was about to join Dan and Terrence in founding this company, NiftyKit, a platform for NFTs. That started a conversation between Lofton and myself. Lofton introduced me to Dan and the rest of the team, and lo and behold, and I think, Dan, this is like 3 years later that we've represented you. So pretty exciting stuff, or maybe it's 2.5, something around there. But so today we're going to be talking about NFTs. Before I jump in, quick update on Blue, my dog. Last time we chatted, he was about to go in for surgery, or just gone in, and he is doing well, 10 days post-recovery, and he's back to his normal self. And the last thing is, and probably the most important things, we got to thank our sponsors for the show. Thank you to Treeline Veterinary Cancer Care for pets in a boutique environment. Thank you to Lalchandani Simon, a boutique healthcare and technology law firm. So with that, Dan Carr, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I love any chance and opportunity to talk about NFTs, and hopefully you don't get some unsubscribes or some people getting scared away. But no, I really appreciate you giving me a chance to, talk about what we've been doing. I know there's a lot of stuff happening. I know you mentioned, is it 2 or 3 years, but stuff moves so fast here. You put your head down and you look up, the whole landscape's changed. So just excited to still be here talking about NFTs, and really excited about, what's going to happen in the future.
Awesome. So before we get going, where do we find you?
So you can find us at niftykit.com. That's the company that we run, the no-code platform. You can also find me on social media at Dan Carr. I'm on X and Twitter. And yeah, reach out, Dan at niftykit.com if you have any questions or you want to geek out a little bit more. But yeah, appreciate the time, and thank you guys for the chat.
And where are you geographically located right now?
So right now I'm in San Diego, between San Diego and LA, back and forth. But with what we do in crypto and NFTs and everything being digital, especially with the emergence of AI, I just need a phone, my computer, and a secure connection, and you can work from anywhere. So
well, listen, but when we get to the end here, one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, and you don't have to answer now, I'm going to give you some time to think. I'm going to ask you, where can you get the best fish taco in San Diego? So don't say it now, but down the road, I'm going to ask you. So just so you're not kind of put on the spot when we get there. What we try to do, Dan, is we try to gear this podcast towards entrepreneurs, professionals who are entering the crypto space, thinking about going off on their own and doing something in the entrepreneurship world. And so one of the things that a lot of our listeners want to know is, give us the real quick snippet on where you were and how you ended up starting Nifty Kit.
Yeah, so I think this starts back for my love of collecting baseball cards. I think,
Wow.
once we start talking about NFTs and, as a kid growing up, I was really into collecting baseball cards and that as a kid, selling and trading, there's a lot of similarities to when I entered crypto. But, my background is in software development and,
Give
I
us a
was
quick,
selling.
what were you
Yeah.
doing? What were you doing in software development before this?
Learning software on my own,
You're kidding.
getting in the trenches, teaching myself, learning by doing, finding jobs that'll let me, show off skills that I could learn, on the side. But really, I was selling merch online on Black Friday 2013, and someone asked if they could pay me in Bitcoin. And I said, sure, not really knowing that it would
2013. This is
change.
2013?
2013, yeah. So 2013, I got featured on a Black Friday, spend your Bitcoin here, and I earned my first Bitcoin. And I didn't really realize the significance then, but I watched it grow until the 2017 bull cycle where things really started to open up with altcoins, DeFi, and then that really deepened my interest in crypto.
One of the things that I know our listeners are thinking right now is how much was Bitcoin trading at back when you got your first one?
I think it was around almost 1,000. I gotta look back. I gotta scroll down and look. I earned it. I hodled it and I watched it
I love this
up.
story. Tell me you kept it.
Oh yeah, I kept it. It was the foundation. It's been the foundation of, everything that I'm in. It slingshotted me into this career that I'm in to be able to break away from a normal 9 to 5. Even though I love my 9 to 5, I
Sure.
was doing things that supported my crypto career because really the foundation is all this Web 2 and things that we've already come to know. But it really slingshotted me and gave me a head start on the understanding of, both the technology, the financial aspects, and then the culture. And now I'm just blessed to, hopefully I don't geek out too much, but I feel like
No.
I have an understanding that you can't get without just getting your hands dirty and doing stuff and trying. And now with AI, there's no excuse to not be able to prototype or try something or sell something. So it was just really an opportunity that I had to jump on early, and it rewarded me.
Well, I think this story for entrepreneurs is like crack because it motivates people, it gets them going because they're hearing your story, how it turned into this bigger enterprise, but it all started with selling merch online, learning software, providing your services. It's kind of incredible. So tell me, when in that kind of time period did you say, well, NFTs are a space I'm very interested in?
Yeah, so in 2017 and that whole run up, it really got me excited, because I was early. I was just watching. I wasn't really aggressive. This has been my first, you know, uh, um, first cycle into it. And, you know, after that crash, it really hit me, being the first time like, okay, everything is down really bad, but I was still committed. I learned trading, technical analysis, whatever money I had left over, I put into, put your money where your mouth is and try trading with crypto. You don't necessarily have to have a lot to get in there and, like you need to do with, traditional stocks, creating accounts, it's easy to jump in and try.
So just
So
to clarify, you were buying and selling Bitcoin, altcoins, other things, not necessarily, in NFTs, or am I wrong?
correct. Yeah. So this, I'm still looking at altcoins, just learning about Ethereum, Ethereum being, this new cryptocurrency that's similar but unlike Bitcoin in a way that it's programmable. And that's kind of where, I was like, this is really interesting. But it was really like after that in late 2020, discovering NFTs, after that whole crash and cycle. And that's where I was like, all right, these are like baseball cards, but you can program them and they have a lot of similar mechanics.
So let's pause there, because a lot of people are sitting here and they're thinking, "Hey, Cubs, just wait. I don't really know what an NFT is." So can you boil that down for us? What is an NFT? And then we'll go into what you did with it.
Yeah, so NFT is a non-fungible token. It's pretty much like a unique digital snapshot that's stored on the blockchain. It's backed by the security of Ethereum, so it could be trusted. But we liken it a lot to baseball cards in a sense, where the way that we used them when we discovered them was in a collectible sense. So you're opening up packs, there's different rarities, there's different artwork, there's different characters. So basically, this NFT represents your ownership of that digital asset that's provable in the blockchain.
So let me ask you something. So I remember I had a conversation at some point, and people were talking about, NFTs as it relates to, some great snaps of different basketball legends. Tell me how this works, because can I go online and look at the image depicted in the NFT, and what the blockchain does, it really tells me that I own this and it's not replicated elsewhere? How is it different than just like a JPEG is what I'm asking. Just I'm trying to make everything clear and manageable. One of the things we try to do here on the pod is make crypto more accessible. So I really want kind of a basics understanding of what this is and why it's valuable.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of different details in there, but in this instance where we're looking at the a basketball card or the ownership of it, usually, technically there's ways to store the data on chain, but it's really expensive. So a lot of these JPEGs you'll see, you can have them point and say, hey, here's your ownership on the blockchain, but really the image is just pointing to some other server somewhere that's hosting the image. So it's similar to, in a Web 2 sense, where if you store your pictures on a server somewhere and that server goes out of business, you lose that image. There is a component to the NFT where people are pointing and saying, hey, you own this. This is the ownership that you own, provable on the blockchain. But the image that you own is just pointing to an image that's stored, on
Somewhere
a
else.
server somewhere. There are decentralized storage solutions that, we use, like Filecoin, or there's also IPFS, which promises to host it forever. But when you're thinking about the actual NFT, really what you're looking at is the ownership and digital authenticity of that moment in time where you're transacting and saying, I own this explicitly because I hold the private keys to the wallet that owns it. So there's a lot of things that you can do with NFTs. They're programmable. So if you just think about the blockchain network Ethereum, it's like one big computer that could transact and interact without any intermediaries. So there's a lot of things that you can also have off chain, that also support what you're doing for business and ownership. But really what you're owning is that digital asset, and whatever the promise is with the party that's creating that smart contract.
Okay, we'll come back to this a little bit as we dig in a little bit more and we hear about Nifty Kit. But I want to kind of hear about the formation of Nifty Kit. You got three great guys. I've interacted with all of them extensively. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I knew Lofton and Terrence before we, were friends. We had Terrence and I had worked at a startup together. Terrence was friends with Lofton. We did hackathons and things for fun that were really nerdy on the side, and just got along as friends and geeked out on this stuff. So it really started, from the love of just, hey, there's this technology, we're talking about it. Let's get serious about it by, poking around and trying some things. The interest deepened, and, this is not the first little hackathon or project that we did. Back in 2015, we were already looking at voice technology and AI stuff. So we're just really big geeks on stuff. And in 2020, when we had that meeting late in, during Christmas time, just geeking out, I think a lot of the things aligned, especially with the NFT market really slingshotting into a boom, going from 80 million one year to like almost 18 billion the next. So
where were each of you at this moment? Like, you guys, I'm guessing you had day jobs or to pay the bills. So who was where?
Yeah, so I had already left my company and was doing things consulting and
Sure.
running car media on my own. Doing really cool, fun things, developing a platform, was working with a lot of different developers, and Terrence and Lofton were working for big tech companies. So, we were doing our thing, and this just sprouted up on the side as just an idea that in 2021 really started to uh, grow legs and start to take off. And, which is why we were in a spot to reach out to you, just knowing that, hey, we're already in a space that's growing and new, and we need just some of the basic stuff. How could we, tackle both, but also stay, ahead of the game on what's going on with these fast moving regulations and things that we were starting to explore that were really new.
How did that feel? I mean, for you, you were kind of already on your own, doing some things on your own, driving your own revenue. But for the other two, they left big tech to come do this. Was that, I've been an entrepreneur in my life, and I know that the feeling is it's scary to all of a sudden think I don't have a paycheck coming in. We're building something. It's going to be a while before I can pay myself anything. Did was that process pretty smooth for the three of you?
Well, I think if you think about the time this was happening, like during the pandemic, I think everybody's life was different. So,
Sure.
even people that were in the most, secure, because if you think about some of these things that we were doing, like, yeah, we were in good places. We didn't have to jump in and go into this unexplored, unproven, technology. But I think a lot of what was happening, we saw a change just not only in ourselves, like, but with the world. So I think a lot of the decisions we made to break away from what we were doing was in part because of what was happening during the pandemic. People were locked up at home. People wanted entertainment and they thought about value in a different way.
Hmm.
And I think the separation from the old way of working to this new way that we're figuring out, I think it just made sense for us to say, hey, everybody's starting over. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. And I think it just makes sense to go into trying these new things with people that you've already been working with and trust.
That's amazing. That's a perfect segue too. So you three of you founded Nifty Kit. What is Nifty Kit?
So Nifty Kit is a self-serve platform that we created that helps creators launch and sell their own NFTs without needing to write smart contracts or code. So we simplified it. Like before, to create NFTs, you had to go find a developer, but we
Sure.
just made it so you didn't have to do any coding. And we really help artists push the boundaries of what you can do with NFTs, because you could do NFTs, but you can also launch collections and do these extra type of gamified drops, smart, like things that really engage your audience and cause them to look past the fact that it's an NFT and more of an experience. So we were able to provide those tools. So people weren't just selling NFTs, they were selling, whatever their brand or their experience was. It gave them the ability to do something new, but also start at, the ground level with everybody else learning it at the same time.
So, and tell us how it went. You guys launched. How long did it take you to get a product going? How long before people were using it and using all these tools and ways to facilitate the launch of their own NFTs? What happened?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was, very brutal, but I think one thing that, we always believe in, like both in the projects we work on at Nifty Kit, or even hackathons from the past, is just being able to ship, work fast, iterate, communicating and having the right mix of people. If you look at myself and my co-founders, we're all completely different and we do different roles. So
I can see it. I see it all the time with you guys. Like, this is 3 distinct personalities.
Yep, exactly. And, I think that that's really helpful because, going in and doing something like this alone is difficult. It's, even doing it with people, you're getting your butt kicked every day. So it's good to already have that, camaraderie and kind of background with people that you can kind of skip past and get to work. But once you can get there and ship fast, it's just about putting it in front of people, saying, hey, it's not the prettiest and most beautiful thing, but we're shepherds of this new technology. So if you're willing to give us feedback, and then I think, at one point it just clicked and we saw people using it and making, a lot of money. And, we knew we had something that was working based on just iterative feedback. Definitely wasn't overnight. And, the space is always changing. We're always having to adapt. So got a lot of really cool new stuff coming that we're working on. So
Just
yeah.
for the listeners, from the moment you guys kind of conceived the idea for Nifty Kit to the moment you took in your first revenue, how long was that?
So we had the idea in late 2020, like during Christmas break. And we really had a prototype, in March, and we're already talking to investors and people interested. We had our first paying customers. Yeah. In April, using some basic services, payment services, and, having just that one thing that, that's really important that you can try out. It really just, snowballed in a good way from there.
That's incredible. Before I move on from like you guys, you mentioned that you guys are all very distinct human beings, and I have seen it. Did you guys ever kind of start rubbing each other the wrong way? Did it ever blow up at all?
Oh yeah, I think that's kind of part of the deal to make these things work, and I think that's why I worked with them, because you have to have those hard conversations about things, and if you don't have them, it could really block progress and things. So I think just being able to go into a conversation, feeling comfortable, just saying like, look, this is what I'm seeing. Tell me if I'm crazy. You got to have those people you can bounce those things off of. And I think you just also have to be, a certain kind of entrepreneur also to, swallow your pride sometimes, admit that you're wrong. And, usually it makes sense to handle those things quicker. And once you do, it's better and you get on to the fun stuff like making money.
All right. So conversely, I imagine there is a day that stands out in your mind where like the 3 of you are seeing some revenues come in. You know that you've built something that is in demand. People want this. You're making money. Can you think of a day that stands out where the 3 of you are either together or on the phone or on a Zoom just thinking, holy shit, this is working?
Yeah, I think, the beauty of the blockchain and what's kind of exciting about it is, it's a public ledger and that thing is 24/7, that it
Sure.
never closes. So when you're seeing revenue, coming in real time and you're refreshing and it's just going up and it's going up and you're refreshing and you're just like stunned at like what is going on. This thing is not stopping. Like make sure things are not broke. Like, is there something wrong? Like check if it's real. And yeah, it was in those initial moments where, we had built a few prototypes. We had been paying for people's when you do Ethereum transactions, you have to pay for the transaction network fee, which
Sure.
was really expensive at the
Sure.
time it was popular. And, for us to onboard people, we paid that, not knowing how volatile it was. So just seeing all of that come into a product that you could refresh and see,
I can,
your work
what a feeling.
working
What a feeling,
from
right?
somebody else. It's
Yeah.
waking up when you're seeing somebody else succeeding and making, you know,
It's
money
like stepping
together.
outside
So
your body and watching it. I think it's awesome that you guys got that feeling. So organizationally, at your peak, how many people did you guys have working, whether employees or contractors?
yeah, so I think we were up to 16. So, smaller on a sense of like pure company size, but I think a lot of what we needed to do was just work efficiently and just make sure we had the right people on board. I think a lot of that comes with just finding the right people. So we
Sure.
weren't in a rush to just throw people at the problem. And then, a lot of the people that we work with, we had worked with in the past, whether through, being employees together or having hired them for some small project. We want to work with people that fit our culture. So it, it allowed us to have a good diverse mix of people. And also being remote because a lot of this was happening during the pandemic. So, for me, having quit my job a few years before, when the pandemic happened and everybody needed to shut down, I pretty much just looked at myself and said, I've been pretty much shut down and working like this for the
You've been doing this
past
for a
4
while.
years. So I was ready to roll.
So let me ask you. Okay, now let's get to the market because anybody who follows this stuff knows that the NFT market is a roller coaster. It's like this past week in the stock market, just up, down, up, down. So how did you? Well, give us a summary. How did the market go since your inception in 2020, and then where are we now?
Yeah. So in 2021, that's when the trading volume surged. You saw like the big Beeple sale, Top Shots was, really hot. There was Bored Ape Yacht Club. Celebrities were paying attention. There was mainstream, like everything. Since then, NFTs have dropped. A lot of them have dropped in volume, like 90%. And, what this looks like is just a reset and a consolidation on a lot of projects that still remain strong because they've built their company, which is really their community of people who are still showing up every day and are part of, they're not just buying an NFT, they're buying into the community in this belief that whatever they're doing together, whether it's jumping onto Twitter X Spaces and, like talking every night or, having some sort of business goals. But, since then, it's been really tough. There's also been a lot of regulatory shifts
Yeah.
and sentiment. A lot of that is changing. There is some signs of recovery, but like you mentioned, just with the regular traditional markets, being in the state that they're at. If you think about NFTs and then even at a higher level, crypto, these are, assets that people are investing in last. So when times are tough, people are getting out of these, and you're going to see these drop really hard when traditional markets go. So, really it's just looking at NFTs as a technology, getting past maybe what everybody, saw in the mainstream and saw, and really like looking at evolving it beyond that. So ticketing systems, access and verification. There's a lot of cool stuff happening with the ownership of real world assets. So think of all your licenses and things being, on the blockchain.
So is that a way of saying this is becoming more functional? Like the NFT space is becoming more functional for use in supporting other sectors?
Yeah, definitely. Like NFTs are becoming more of a layer for, different, not even just digital identity. Like a lot of people joke about saying you're buying monkey pictures, but for infrastructure or, just usage of services, there's a lot of things that can happen fast when you codify and you're using crypto to transact versus a traditional system where it takes time for money to go back and forth. If we're looking at what AI is doing now, imagine in the future where things are going to need to be in code to execute faster, to make money move faster, to do business faster. NFTs are going to be a big part of supporting that, by, the access, the identity, and everything that happens with this programmable public ledger.
So you think there's a place for NFTs in the future? Like, they may iterate, but they're not going anywhere.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, if you even look at a lot of the, just the technology, even the internet as it came out, and a lot of these initial spikes in, hey, people are not going to enter their credit card on the internet, and then now, we have e-commerce, or hey, people are not going to do more than listen to, more than call on their phone, and now we have businesses just built on
Yeah.
mobile phones. So I think this is kind of the next user interface. I think crypto is going to play well with AI, and there's a lot of opportunities for people out there who want to be entrepreneurs and may not even need a bunch of people in a team to do it. So
That is kind of the whole point of this show, is to just talk to entrepreneurs, inspire them, stimulate them, get them thinking about different things, get them some insight into, for you guys, like people who've done it before. Here's some of the things, that the challenges, and here's some of the things that we did to overcome those challenges. So if I asked you this, let's move the kind of the fluctuations in the NFT market aside. In your entrepreneurial journey with Nifty Kit, what is probably one of the biggest challenges that you had to face and deal with and overcome?
I think it's staying the course, like staying true to yourself. And I know that there's changes and there's things you have to be really flexible with, which is also part of it. But I think like, with us, and especially the space that we're in, like working with people with integrity, acting with integrity, knowing that like people are really trusting you, and now they're trusting you with financial assets, and there's a lot of money on the line. This is not just some, you know, 99 cents a month
Sure.
service. Like people are really relying on this to build their business or extend and just stay alive, especially during the pandemic where people had to get creative. So I think when you have that kind of environment where you see all these crypto pump and dumps and you see the money that people are making, I think it's not being, staying the course, staying true to yourself, not selling out, not getting too distracted by whatever the shiniest thing is, because you might get into this loop of just trying every new thing that's out instead of
Sure.
stacking wins on top of each other. So I think if you got a good game plan going in, you feel comfortable of who you're doing with. I think just keeping on brand and making sure you're not, doing anything illegal or getting too money hungry. And
No, I get.
I
That's why you
think
call
like
me, man. That's why you call me.
exactly.
Let me ask you something. It's really easy to talk about, starting a company and moving forward a project, but I sometimes it's hard to kind of really zero in on what is your life like. So, as you guys were building these things, give me a picture, an insight into a typical day in the life of Dan Carr as he's building this company, rolling it out, managing it, enjoying the upsides, dealing with the downsides. What are you doing every day?
Yeah. So, again, we launched during the pandemic and we were all working remotely. So, that there's a lot of communication challenges there. So it started off with creating that morning. All right, we're going to war every single day. We got to have a daily meet of just what we're working on because time is of the essence. And this is where being upfront and working with people you can call out or just move fast with really helps. So,
And you guys are
um,
spread out all over California, right?
yeah, yeah, Southern California, and at times, with family and traveling. So,
Wow.
and with crypto and the way that the platform worked too, like it's 24/7. So, a lot of the way that we work, we didn't want to have meetings just to have meetings, right?
Sure.
So a lot of what we did was we looked at our flows and we said like how's the best way to just make communication and progress efficient. Let's not over engineer things. Let's not research every single task management platform.
Sure.
We don't need to have 10 versions of the to-do list. So a lot of it, at the early stage was uh, meeting frequently and often, but for sure, like organized periods of
Sure.
time, keeping people on track. And a lot of it was just building, um, we all have different skills, but at the end, we're all the creators and actual builders. So, you know, um, Terrence coding, Lofton designing, whatever I do, a mix of different things, just making sure to fill in the gaps. But a lot of what we did was what we were best at, and that was actually building something that people can use and getting it out there and providing that feedback loop that kind of keeps the machine going.
So, I kind of saw this. You and I dealt with each other quite a bit. So does that mean like you handled the administrative part of the business that was kind of fell into your lap?
Yeah, yeah. So, the way that we worked on it, we had the platform. It would get designed. We would design features. They would get implemented. We would ship it, and a lot of where I was helping out with that layer, getting people into the platform, using a lot of what I learned, building e-commerce platforms and
Sure.
marketing things like all right, we have a platform, but how do we know if it's working? So a lot of data analytics, things that I started kind of, similar to even analyzing charts and technical
Sure.
analysis is just what is actually happening? Where's the opportunity? Hey, what do you guys think? Let's build this feature. This is what they're saying. And it's just, running experiments pretty much every week, if not, every half week, just trying to see what's working and what's not. So,
I find that
um,
so fascinating because you guys, you can see the differences in your personalities, but like as you describe, how you guys work together, I can kind of see this functioning really well. Like everybody's got their world and they get input from the others and you kind of, that you push it forward together, but you each have your own little station and that seems to be a formula for success.
yeah, and we took a lot of what we learned works really well in these big tech companies and our backgrounds of like already having
Sure.
done this and figured out the problem and just said like look, let's not spin our wheels. And a lot of it became about implementing processes. So designers didn't have to talk to developers if you're able to just look at one centralized source of truth and know exactly what the other person is thinking just by the work they're producing day to day. So
That's awesome. That was like kind of a subconscious communication that you guys have, and also that institutional knowledge that you guys had. That you've seen other big companies do it. Now let's kind of alter it and make it fit this startup world, which is super cool. So one of the things we do on this show, and I probably should do it earlier in the show because all the feedback I get is this is everybody's favorite part. I'm going to give you 5 questions. It's just short questions. It's trying to allow people to see inside your brain. Okay, here's what's important. Here's the way you think. And the first one I have here is: do you ever think about ever just getting a normal job where you don't have to constantly worry about the future of the company and the iterations of your particular product or service in the economy? Does that ever sound like a compelling thing to do?
It's hard for me to grasp the questions because, even if I was to take a normal job, I own my own area. Like it's a small company. And I think that's a lot of like people should make the right decision on when it's time to leave, but they should not look at it as just like finding a 9 to 5 job because that's where I got all of my knowledge and stuff, but for me at this point now, I think like after I've gotten here and you've been able to, do your own schedule. No, I don't want to go back to the 9 to 5
The
job, but
9 to 5.
I think my main thing is I just, I don't think about 9 to 5 job anymore because I think crypto's all again it's 24/7. I feel like my clock is just completely messed up now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to work for, other people's goals
Yeah.
and but
You know
no.
what? I remember when I was a young attorney doing, working at a huge firm. One of the partners who I consider a mentor, he said to me, he's like, "Look, I'm going to give you a job. A lot of people would say it's the most boring job ever because it's like dealing with discovery and litigation. You're looking at documents and you're writing up documents." And he's like, "Look, treat this as I'm hiring your law firm to do this. And if you start thinking about it that way, like this is my world, kind of like the way you described it, it feels kind of entrepreneurial, even though I'm not at the end responsible for everything. If I treat that little piece as mine and my little law firm runs that piece, you start taking a different idea of it and you approach it differently and you deliver, I think, a better product."
Yep. And you're kind of already building your company there, right? Because you're going to need
Totally.
those, learn it on somebody else's dime,
That's
right?
exactly right. Like they're paying me they're giving me equity in my future company by teaching me these things.
Yeah, like I got to get these 10 developers and these 5 designers to work together. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but it's going to be fun because I'm going to have to do this again one day,
And I'm going to
So,
benefit that one day. Like that time it'll be all my benefit. So
yeah, and I'll be paying for it. Unlike, this time,
where
I
like
get to
somebody else can.
learn. Yeah.
So the next question I have is, if you got a free couple hours in San Diego, nobody is calling you, nobody's pressing you to deliver anything. What are you doing with that time?
I'm heading to the beach. Uh, it's quick and easy to go there. You can just, find a spot and you don't even have to go in the water. I think it's a good place for me to reset and keep my phone in the car.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think, we have the phrase touching grass. Like it's just anywhere I can go and reset just because, the news is nonstop and, there's always somebody who needs help with something. So there's always something to do.
Do you find that you do that a lot?
No, not as
To hang
much.
out.
You kind of, yeah,
It's
it's
always,
kind of
it
wishful
sounds
thinking
awesome.
question.
I think it's a constant reminder to make yourself do it. Like, cut
Yeah.
away. For me, I'm in Colorado most of the time. So, like, I literally just go walk in the mountains or do something. And that
Yep.
little excursion, like, pays dividends, right?
Yep. Yep. And that was something that, I had to get feedback from, my co-founders, just like, dude, take a break.
Yeah.
We can see it, so you got to also know when to take a quick second, even if it's 2 hours.
That's awesome. So, the next one is a standard question we ask all our guests. If you have a wish, and that wish is going to come true tomorrow, what's the wish?
We all get rich in crypto and our bags pump.
Listen, that's it. I get it. I
We
feel
all
like,
go up. We all go up, So,
you know,
yeah.
no, I get it. It's as we talk to a lot of people who've been in crypto since its inception, everybody that's come on the podcast has these stories about crypto from back in as early as like 2009, 10, 11, and it's been such a roller coaster. And now it seems to be stabilizing a little bit, probably more stable than our stock exchange. But and I think I love that sentiment. Is like now that we're here, I'm hoping everybody just starts to start developing wealth, make their life a little bit easier, and that's great.
Yeah, yeah. The point is to kind of, flip the model on its side and give us the ownership and give us the value and let the market dictate the value. And, you know, um, the financial gain is there. And yeah, maybe it's more stable now, but there's pockets and things that are just going to change even faster now,
Sure.
especially with AI.
Next question is, what's your favorite moment each day?
I think waking up, I think that sometimes I can kind of just take, being able to do this and get my butt kicked every day and work on, when things are hard. Um,
Do you
I
have a
think,
routine every morning that you do? Something that like kind of just stabilizes you, or you get up and you just start firing off?
yeah, I think usually I get up and start firing off, but that's something that I'll admit I'm not the best at. I'm just bouncing around from different things, which I love and is what my strength is to be able to handle that. But I do need more routine, and I've been having a gym routine, some other wellness stuff,
Yeah.
reset, touching grass, and even checking in with family and people that maybe you haven't talked to for a while, because there's
Sure.
a lot of knowledge and stuff happening like outside of your own little crypto world. So sometimes it's nice to reach out and see what's happening.
Do you have a time at the end of the day where you just call it quits, or is it just goes until it stops?
Yeah, I think I quit when I like just pass out, or sometimes it goes till, things get really engaging and interesting. And I think with like the amount of information and, crypto Twitter is a place where there's always something going on. I think it
Yeah.
kind of makes it hard, but um it's probably not the healthiest thing, but I think it's just because I'm,
This is you. This is you. No, like I think
uh
it's a great thing for young budding entrepreneurs to hear is like, look at your day. Like you get up, you start firing off, you go, maybe you find a moment to touch some grass, and then you're going until your eyes close.
yeah, yeah. And I think like enjoy, like I want to do it while I can, right? Like I want, if I have the energy to work that long day, like I'm gonna put it in, because it's still, I'm gonna get those hours back on the back end when I'm retired and
Yeah.
chilling. So, I'll do it while I have the energy.
Let me ask you. So this is the final question before we get to like kind of the last segment. Is that let's just imagine crypto doesn't exist, NFTs don't exist, none of it exists. What do you think you'd be doing with your life?
I would probably be working on cars or doing some sort of, hands on, I built I was really hands on, like not only with computers, but with cars when I was younger. So, I think just wrenching on something, even fixing something, even if it's boring, like there's still an accomplishment. And the fact that you're able to do it and save all that money from, somebody who probably wouldn't do it right.
I get it.
Yeah.
It
So
is.
I'd be working on cars.
Have you ever built a car or, taken it apart, put it back together, all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah, I did the, father and son work on cars, and he teaches you how to do all the stuff. And
That's
then,
awesome.
yeah, and after high school, I spent all my Taco Bell salary money on performance parts and motor swaps and tires. So, yeah, I think when I was into that, I also got a job working in automotive parts. So I kind of doubled down on like, all right, this is my hobby and it's my job, and it kind of helped supercharge, So yeah, I'd
Does your
work
family,
on.
like, do you interact with your family a lot, as you mentioned? Are- Have they ever like shared with you kind of like, their thoughts on like what you've built, is your ability to play in this space and build something and make money in this space? Have they ever kind of like looked at you and been like, wow?
Yeah, yeah. I think for my mom, she's still trying to wrap her head around it, but bless her soul, like I'll have the correct app for her to not even have to know what crypto is when she
Sure.
needs to use it. Um, but yeah, my pops and I have chatted, and I think things come to mind where it's just something really new, and I have to find a way to educate on, why this is more than just a monkey picture or funny money. So
You know, it
it's
really
challenging.
seems like your tendency towards being a maker really came from your childhood and and doing stuff with your dad. It seems like, you guys were building at some point and then you just taken it into a new area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad was really big on how to illegally mod my PlayStation so I can just burn games instead of having to buy them,
That's
or
amazing.
building models, working on just really engineering and electronically minded. And a lot of those things you can do with parts, you can kind of put people together similarly too. So kind of the evolution of my creator is just creating the system that allows people to just do their thing and for everybody to make money.
That is awesome. All right. One final question for you is, what piece of advice do you have for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, you know, the biggest piece of advice I would say is, um, keep building, keep staying, in we call them in the trenches in the crypto world, right? It's just
I like
being there
that.
hands on, understanding as much as you can from the ground up. There's no excuse now. There's AI and tools and live conversations and people that can help you. If you hop on X on Twitter, be careful with the information, especially in crypto and what links you're clicking on. But I think it's important that people onboard at least to the basic extent of knowing about this technology, because it's going to be a bigger part, of our lives as this stuff gets more complicated. So if you can get your hands on with somebody you trust, feel free to even reach out if you need resources.
Awesome.
Get your hands in there, because life changing moments could come at a time that you don't even really realize. But if you're ready, like, you'll be able to capitalize on it.
So I appreciate that. Listen, I'm gonna do one last segment at the end here, but I want to thank you for coming on. It's been awesome working with you guys and seeing everything you guys have done. Thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with our audience. What I do here at the end here is I kind of take what I've learned from like working with you and our experience together, and I try to pluck out lessons that I think might be useful to other people. And from you, there's two. From working with Nifty Kit, there is two. One, it goes back to hanging out in LA with my guy Dane Flanagan. And we happened to be in a bar and met a guy who then led to a 3-year working relationship together. And I'll just tell you, the lesson I take from that is opportunities come from anywhere. Kind of what you just said is that you have no idea when opportunities are going to present themselves, so be ready to capitalize. And this is exact, example of that. I want to shout out Dane Flanagan, wealth manager in LA. Reach out if you need his contact, because without him, meeting and chatting with Lofton, you and I would never know each other. So I think that is one thing. Opportunities come from anywhere. And the other thing is this, and this is why I kept asking you about, your team, is because working with you guys is amazing. You guys have very distinct skill sets, and I think it was kind of one of those examples where the sum is greater than the parts. You guys all working together delivered more value than if you guys had gone separately. And I think as young entrepreneurs are thinking about starting a company, and you heard from Brian Hernandez a few weeks ago that it's more fun when you have co-founders. I think the other thing you think about is when you have co-founders, find complementary skills. And I think that is something that really you can predict a successful company when you find a management team that is adhered to the advice. So again, thank you to our sponsors, Treeline Veterinary Cancer Care and Lalchandani Simon. We appreciate everything, all the support, and we look forward to episode 7 next week. Our good friend Vivek Jairam of Jairam Law is going to come in and talk about digital art. So tune in next week for that. Thanks for coming on the show.